Have you ever walked along a car lot shopping for your next new car, truck, SUV, and wondering, is that vehicle reliable or not? Does it have an engine that smokes and knocks and ticks and actually has a reduction in power, or maybe just go boom? Or is the vehicle you're shopping for have reliability issues associated with all the technology and the electrics, screens that flake out, electric check engine lights, and a barrage of issues that drive your vehicle back to the shop time and time again? Remember, car lots are often worth $200 an hour shop rate just to keep them diagnosed. Today I'm going to walk down a car lot, look at some of the best and the worst used vehicles on the market. I'm going to share some of the key issues that you might find with some of those vehicles as well. I'm going to rate them out of 5-star so you can go out there armed with the information you know to buy your next used vehicle or avoid the worst. Let's get into it now. Life's too short to drive boring cars. All right, here's the first vehicle. Let's take a quick look here what we see on the lot. This here clearly has some aftermarket rims on there. Beautiful paint job. What are we looking at? A Lexus here. Of course, this is a fairly large car, a sedan, and we're looking at leather interior. We have sunroof. We have a lot of the great amenities, but this is clearly one of the most reliable vehicles on the market. Why? Because this is an ES 350, and that 350 in this generation has that famous or infamous 290 some odd horsepower, close to 300 horsepower V6. I would say this vehicle here ranks as one of the most reliable vehicles you could possibly get. I give this one a 4.5 out of 5-star and one of Lexus' most reliable vehicles. Then we move over here, we have a Ford F-150. This one here is a Platinum. Obviously Ford and reliability don't necessarily go hand in hand, but it's a full-size truck. A lot of people love them. Of course, there are some issues. We know the latest recall, there's a rear hub issue where it can actually break and then the vehicle can roll away inadvertently. And as well, we know carbon issues inside with some of these engines, and certain engines have valves dropping. They're not necessarily the most reliable pickup truck, and because it's a Ford, gearbox issues, engine issues in some cases. Sure, they're workhorse vehicles, but I rank this vehicle about 3 out of 5. Then we look at a Subaru here. This vehicle, wow, look at this. We have a Forester. Wow, very upright, not necessarily the prettiest vehicle on the block, but does it serve the purpose? Well, a lot of people love these. They have the infamous all-wheel drive system, and Subaru has some of the best all-wheel drive, but they've made a shift. They go to CVT transmissions, which do become a little problematic. That is an issue with some of these vehicles. And specifically with the Forester here, we can actually almost expect a blown valve cover, or we can almost anticipate adding oil because these are known for oil consumption. So not necessarily the most reliable. If you drive them gingerly, softly, they can last a long time, but they're generally going to see engine and transmission issues along their lifespan. Then over here, we have a BMW 3 Series. Obviously not the latest. This is an F Series 3 Series. So F Generation 3 Series. Of course, we do have your standard garden variety BMW headlights and the typical kidney grille right there. And as we notice, body parts come off. That's not necessarily uncommon. There are some fragile plastic parts as well. Remember, BMW, plastic fantastic. That's pretty typical for this brand. And as we see, a lot of this hardware does stick up very well. We do have some great sunroofs and of course a great set of rims on these vehicles. This here, when it comes equipped either with the Turbo 4 or the N47, which is the diesel 4-cylinder, means this vehicle can be subjected to numerous failures. So again, the N47, the diesel, the N20, of course, if we're talking about specifically the Turbo 4, the earlier generations had a lot of issues. Oil consumption, but more specifically, timing chain rattle and catastrophic boom. And not only that, you had issues with the oil filter housing gasket leaks, valve cover leaks, oil pan gasket leaks, coolant leaks, water pumps, thermostats. Where does it begin and end? I would give this generation BMW right here clearly probably a 2.5 out of 5 star. Early years of this run well, but as with age, they break down very, very quickly. We have another Lexus vehicle, and this one here absolutely is great. It looks like it's a very aggressive looking front end. Beautiful rims. This is an F Sport, has the LC 500 mirrors. Look, sunroof on top, cycle around, and we notice it does have some great taillights. This is a later generation. Again, as I say, F Sport, this is the NX 300. And look, somebody went and affixed a tow hitch on there, and we do have a set of relatively fake exhaust tips. Now this vehicle here can be very, very reliable, but because we're talking about the NX300, we might be talking about a turbo 4-cylinder engine. In some of the later generation Lexus vehicles that have the turbo 4s, the jury's out yet whether they're going to be reliable. So far, they're looking pretty stout. Some of these NX vehicles do come with a naturally aspirated 2.5-liter 4-cylinder, which is a workhorse. Some people say, well, there's some issues potentially with carboning and as well some durability issues, but generally Lexus and Toyota products are solid as they can be. And as a result, this Lexus NX, as we see right here, I would give this here clearly a 4 out of 5 star. Then here we have another Lexus. This is older generation. As you can see, notice the front grille. I'll point this out to you later, but the older front grille, how it wraps up to the top. As you can see, this is slightly larger than this. This one here, we do have great headlights, quite different. Another very aggressive front chin spoiler on there. More laser cut rims, LC 500 mirrors, beautiful interior that's fit for a king as well. You've got the sunroof, a roof rack, and a set of sight lines that is just absolutely gorgeous. But what's even more gorgeous is the RX 350, means you get that naturally aspirated V6 engine, just like we saw in that ES 350 before this. And as a result, I would rank this vehicle very, very high for reliability, very safe. You might have the odd infotainment system issue or glitch. You might have to do a reboot. Low battery voltage can wreak havoc, but these generally are very, very reliable. They also sit up and made it up to a torque converter transmission in this generation, so definitely a great combination for durability and longevity. I would rank this as well 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then over here we have a Lincoln. Well, what is this vehicle here? Not the greatest looking unit. It has these fish scale style grille on it, fold away mirrors with LED strip. Of course, beefy looking handles, two-tone chrome on there. Yes, you also get a large sunroof on this vehicle. And look, you do get a beautiful overhang on this unit too. Wrap around, more of a basic set of taillights. For a vehicle that's considered luxury, it looks very basic. We're talking about Lincoln, which is the brother of Ford. This is a 2.7 all-wheel drive EcoBoost. And when we say EcoBoost, what do we mean? Well, we know EcoBoost is chock full of problems. Some of them are better than others. The V6s aren't as problematic as some of the 4-cylinders that are actually eating head gaskets and coolant, but these ones have been known to be somewhat problematic as well. Either way, the big issue here is brakes. There have been known issues with the brakes that consistently start to delaminate and the hubs start coming apart, start getting clunky noisiness from the brake system. Transmissions also issues there too. As we know, this isn't the most reliable unit. I would definitely give this probably a 2.5 out of 5 star. Then we cycle over to this beautiful little rig, and this one here is clearly one of the up-and-comers. It doesn't get all the fanfare that we're seeing from Toyota and Honda, but this one arguably is taking over the reliability crown. Of course, we have some great headlights, and as we notice, it's a Mazda. Love a different style of rims on these. Look, fold-away mirrors, very much like the other cars. An interior that feels very, very nicely stapled together and probably punching above its weight class. Lots of sunroof on top, makes it feel very luxurious. And cycle around, look at the flare on this, makes it look very aggressive. Love the taillights, a very stylish looking unit by Mazda. And what are we talking about? The CX-50 right here, and it's all-wheel drive. But specifically, we're talking about the Skyactiv Turbo. Now, the beauty with these vehicles, you can get them in a couple of setups. You can get either the turbo 4-cylinder, which is this, 250 ponies, or get the naturally aspirated, about 180 horsepower, 170 horsepower. In the NA version, they both made up to a 6-speed automatic transmission. The C50 is also essentially the same vehicle, similar chassis, but this one's built a little wider, lower, and it's a little bit more for fun. Intended more for an off-road. This vehicle, clearly one of my class favorites in modern day, everyday SUVs. I would rank this here at a 4.5 out of 5. And there's the next one right here, parked in front of us. So what are we talking about here? A Lexus IS300, as we notice here, means it's a turbo 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, makes about 241 horsepower. As you'll notice, all-wheel drive, has a great set of exhaust tips, has all the flash and pizzazz that you can ask for in a local Lexus here. These are great vehicles, beautiful lines along the bottom, but it's more about the fact that they generally don't break. That 2-liter engine under their package with a turbo isn't as unreliable. Now, it doesn't put out the same levels of power. BMW's doing similar things with closer to 260 horsepower, but it puts down enough jam and is economical enough. However, if you want the best course of action for a Lexus IS, let me tell you, this is the one you want. As I notice right here, IS350, and I've spoken about this before, some of the Lexus and Toyota vehicles with the 350 designation usually means, up until the latest generation, comes with that naturally aspirated 3.5-liter V6 that makes a whopping 300 horsepower or slightly above. It's fun to drive, it's sporty, and it's reliable. It's been tried and true, and they've used it over and over again. So anything with that 350 designation up to probably 24 model years, you're going to carry that 3.5-liter V6 for the win. This vehicle here, fun, attractive, slightly down on performance. I mean, it doesn't compete with the 340 BMWs. For example, the V6 or the straight 6 BMWs in the same generation will teach this car a lesson in terms of performance. But this car here, you can drive home every day and not worry about it breaking the bank. Where the BMW, well, time will tell. So great looking car. You have the LC 500 mirrors. Clearly another vehicle. I will rank this at 4.5 out of 5. Then we have this little rig right here. Not a great unit. We all know this. Stellantis, FCA, Jeep, Chrysler, all those Ram products, everything associated with that family line. People like them because they're well known, they're well supported in the service department, and there's lots of them available out there, but they're not the greatest product. These here, we have known issues with fueling, exhaust leaks, of course, cracking at the manifold, and even more importantly, transmission problems. Some of these vehicles that had a transmission that could actually inadvertently roll away, and it actually ended up resulting in a few fatalities. We do have exhaust tips that were pretty much carboned up. You'll notice lots of carbon coming out of the backside there. It's not necessarily a very reliable vehicle and not a great source if you're looking for something that's going to last a long time. Now, there are owners that will claim that they can get tons of miles out of them. Yeah, only because some of the parts are relatively cheap and affordable, but they are flimsy. They're not particularly well engineered or well manufactured. And at the end of the day, you're going to be in and out of shops with nickel and dime related issues, most of which are not super expensive, but the quality is just not wrapped up in a Jeep product. And this is the Grand Cherokee. I'd say walk away. Personally, I'd rank this at about a 3 out of 5. Here, Lexus NX 350h. We already spoke of vehicles that are like this. This is the new generation of the NX, as we see all-wheel drive. Beautiful. Drove one of these the other day. It has the naturally aspirated 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine from the base Camry, but they also wallop that in there where they put a little hybrid action in there, so it makes it fun and frivolous. Fun little driver, and clearly very practical, reliable. And because Toyota owns the reliability crown in terms of CVT transmissions, this one here, there's no worry. Their CVTs as well as their hybrid systems are durable and built for the last for a long time. I would rank this at 4 out of 5 stars. Good to go. And as well, then we have another Lexus here. This is the older generation RX. As I already mentioned, you'll notice the larger grille, and I'll show you the newer grille coming up here shortly because we have one on our list. But this vehicle here obviously is similar to that other 350 that we just showed. And it, you know, cosmetically from the outside looks the same. LC 500 mirrors. You have the beautiful roof rack, sunroof on top. It's gorgeous. And then of course you have this great finishing here. But this one here, as we notice with this bar here, this one is a 450h right here. So this one's a little different. We're talking about a hybrid. And again, as I say, Lexus and hybrids are pretty durable, but I wouldn't give it the total thumbs up from a reliability standpoint like you get with the 350. And as a result, I would give this vehicle a 4 out of 5 stars for overall reliability. Still, you can't go wrong. It's not going to treat you poorly, and it's going to be relatively easy to fix if it ever breaks. Clearly, we're talking about a Mercedes-Benz here. This is a little bit of an older vehicle, but actually, if I can say, this is one of their more durable units. Now, we're talking about a GLK 350. We also have a naturally aspirated V6 here, and Mercedes land. 4MATIC means it's all-wheel drive, practical for the snow and ice like we see down here, but it's a cute little unit. Lots of chrome detail on the logos and the labeling, as well as chrome all the way along the window ledge here, and chrome roof rack up there as well. The interior is actually from a generation when they still knew how to build vehicles and keep them stapled together. The GLK has a few nickel and dime issues, most of which are related to more to electrics, the odd water pump problem, but this is still from a generation when they were a simpler vehicle, less tech, and more durable. I'll rank this at a 3.5 out of 5 star. This one here, we're talking about a Lexus RX 350, as I just mentioned. Now we're dealing with a different conversation because this is the newest generation and this is slightly used. That's why it's in this conversation, but this is all-wheel drive. But one thing you'll notice, look clearly right here, the front grille is very, very different than you're finding on the older generation that actually had the full wrap-up. This one feels more like a Dale Hunter. Remember Dave Hunter, Dale Hunter from the NHL? Used to get in a lot of fights. He had that big nose. Well, this kind of is what this reminds me of. So it's not a bad looking unit, but it's definitely changed. And that 350 is no longer a naturally aspirated 3.5 liter V6. Instead, it's now a turbo 2.4 liter engine. And the jury's out yet whether in fact that's going to hold up as long as the older outgoing 350. We will see. But as a result, I would still give this vehicle a 4 out of 5 star for reliability. And then over here we have another beauty right here. Honda has always been on the top hop, so Toyota and Lexus like this, Hondas have always made reliable vehicles. Up until about the last 10 years or so, when they started switching over to that 1.5 liter turbo 4 that has oil and fuel dilution issues. So that could be an issue, as well as CVT transmissions aren't that durable in some of the Honda products. So Honda's made some slips. They've had some issues with that, some fuel pump problems. We also know there's some quality control troubles that they've experienced in some cases. And generally speaking, it's still a relatively reliable vehicle to buy. I'm not saying you never buy a Honda. I'm saying Hondas are still a very safe bet. It's just that there's been a few trip ups, a few coughs, a few hacks, if you will. And so even though it's a great looking unit and it is Honda, there are a few problems. So clearly the Honda is an arch nemesis to Camrys and Corollas. This vehicle falls somewhere in the middle. We're talking about a Honda Insight. And this vehicle is quite unique. There's not a lot around, but you look, I mean, you have some body panels that aren't holding up all that well. I mean, the quality control is still decent. Even with a nicely put together interior, the fact remains is this vehicle brand, Honda in general, has slipped to a point where actually BMW's edged Honda out, if you can actually believe that. But as a result, I would still give this vehicle, the Honda Insight, as you see in hybrid configuration here, a 3.5 out of 5 star. And here's another one that's found on the lot. Clearly we're looking at a Mercedes-Benz here. They have the beautiful Starlight grille. I do love this big oversized piece right here. The 3-pointed star definitely tells people that, hey, get out of their way, we're coming through. This is a good looking unit as far as SUVs go, but compared to the X5, I wouldn't say it ranks quite as well. This vehicle does have some issues. Now, lighting issues, gorgeous LEDs, but there's lots of modules, and I've heard a lot of customers complain about electric issues with some of these and modules that fire these. Modules that control everything in these vehicles, for like lane assist, as well as some of the specialty braking systems and traction control systems. A lot of electronics in this vehicle is known to go. Now, the core engine isn't that bad, and neither are the transmissions in this vehicle. But people have talked about some electrical issues. Like I said, we've got mirrors and modules. This B-pillar has been known to be a problem of whistling and clicking and making noises. For a lot of customers, been complaining about that. And then look right here. I don't know if you can see this. Smooth, not smooth. Clearly, and as you cycle around, look at this unit here. Go all the way around, and we look at it on this side too. Smooth, not so smooth. That's a new bumper. But either way, or it's been resprayed, something's gone on there. But what we're looking at is a GLE 450 by Mercedes, and it's a 4MATIC, so it's good for hauling through snow and ice, and it's a good looking unit. Definitely hauls all the kidlings around, can get you around in a lap of luxury. I mean, it does have some nice styling, flair, and detail like that, and has the latest infotainment screen. Look at that massive driver's pod right there, and all the controls. Looks absolutely stealthy. Pedestrian warning systems and all those other electrics are problematic with some of these vehicles, and I find particularly we own a C300, and we find a lot of the modern day Mercedes-Benz has a lot of too much plastic that's way too fragile. And so our experience is body panels popping off or cracking loose, and I would almost anticipate this looks exactly the same generation, same type of vehicle. I would almost anticipate similar issues right there. So this would here rank for me as probably a 2.5 out of 5 star. And then we move into a Jeep. What do we have here? Well, some people are going to say this is basically a Wrangler. You know, some people are going to argue and say, well, look, it's a Gladiator, but it's a Wrangler. Yeah, pickup truck Wrangler. You see it has the box back there. Not a great vehicle. Again, as we said about Jeep before, not solid product. We have a lot of issues here. Of course, electrics are problematic. We do get issues with lighting issues, of course, mirrors, electrics inside, gauges, and all kinds of electronics, as well as a no start issue because of what they call the TIPM, the totally integrated power module, which when it fails, it controls all of the electric inputs, outputs, and stops the vehicle from running properly. You might get glitches, you might get light problems, or you might just get no running. That's a big issue that affects a lot of these late model Jeep products like this. You can also get the fishbowl effect because the seals here aren't that great. You can get water inside there and you can fill up the cabin, wind up with wet carpets. Of course, these are well put together, but look how basic this is. You pay a lot of money. This vehicle here was about $80,000 Canadian. Look at the lights you're getting on this vehicle. Yeah, a lot of people like it for its simplicity, but it's also not all that well made. As we talk about some of the other issues, death wobble. When the suspension starts to wear out a little bit, as they tend to do on these vehicles, you get a lot of issues with suspension problems where it starts to wear out too prematurely, and then you have a situation where the front end starts to shake and rattle way too much at higher speeds, and it becomes a very dangerous situation. Now, I know I have people reply to me when I've talked about this before and said, wow, it's just maintenance. Yeah, but a lot of other cars, even with neglected maintenance, just get a little loose and clunky, but they don't get a death wobble, so to speak. So it's a little problematic. Clearly the quality is just not there. So I would give that vehicle a 2.5 out of 5 star. Here we have a Nissan right here. Nissan is not a particularly great product these days, mainly because a lot of the transmissions they're using. Obviously we have a laser cut type rims there. We have chrome handles here. And as you cycle around, I will give Nissan the styling thumbs up for a lot of the looks. Of course, they do make a vehicle that is very attractive, but it's a not well-made unit. Of course, this is a Murano, or Murano in other words. This is the SV. Didn't they just guess SV from Lamborghini Murcielago? Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, this here is not all that well put together. Yeah, they got some nice details and the interior looks quite stout too, but there have been issues. Breaking sunroof inadvertently for no reason, electric issues, fuel problems, check engine lights, transmissions. We can't forget it's a late model Nissan. You will have transmission issues likely 9 times out of 10. And it's just generally not a very well made vehicle. So as a result, I would give the Nissan Murano a 2.5 out of 5 star. I wouldn't risk my money on that car. Clearly a Genesis product. You can tell by the big wings right there. And yeah, they have this big bold grille, very fancy. Love the low profile headlights, love the grills, love the detailed rims. And of course they have this Genesis, makes it look like a Bentley. Of course, there's definitely a Bentley look right there. They've got more detail. Beautiful mirrors that fold away. Look at the handles, two-tone. The interior is absolutely spectacular, Bentley level almost. Of course, you also have this beautiful low profile on top. Of course, that is not the issue here. Neither are the real tail lights here of this GV80 by Genesis. This one is the 4-wheel drive 2.5T. Not a lot of engine and transmission issues that I'm hearing about today so far. However, because it's a late model unit, there have been some issues with people electrics, their infotainment screen flickering. Of course, some electrical issues, the odd check engine light. There have been some electrical related issues. The big thing that stands out is there's a late model issue that people are talking about, fuel pumps. And there's been some fuel pumps disintegrating internally, causing issues. Obviously, if your fuel pump's not working, no fuel delivery, it's going to stall. So that has been an issue. This one here is another Nissan product. This one's all-wheel drive Infiniti, as we see here, QX60. This one definitely there's problems with brakes. Some of the electrics internally here as well have been an issue. There's also been lots of talk about misfires. And while some people would argue and say that's maintenance, it seems to be afflicting many more of these vehicles than many others. So misfiring, fueling issues, and I've heard of people talking about as you accelerate and you're leaving a stop sign, sometimes you're getting a clunking noise in the driveline. So it does feel a little bit fragile, for being honest. I would rank this at about a 3 out of 5. Then we move over here, Alfa Romeo. Now, I know Alfa, Jag, Range Rover, they're always low on the totem pole in terms of overall reliability, but this is actually better than you would think. I featured this on previous videos, and this vehicle here have a few issues. Get outside of that, the engine, the gearbox, pretty solid. There's not a lot of big issues around those items. But here we're looking at Alfa Romeo Giulia, and it has great headlights, no big issues there. There have been problems with the ABS system on the front of some of these vehicles. There's also been talk about issues in the back brake system where they crumble or they've been dismantling themselves. Some of the brake related troubles in these vehicles. And even up top here, some of the electrics are typically well functioning. Very few things don't work in here. Look at those beautiful bolstered seats and that wonderful shifter. The more you research and find out, and the more people I've spoke to about these, find that they're actually quite a reliable vehicle. The problem is when they sit too long, the battery starts to discharge. When the battery discharges, then it starts spitting out different check engine lights, different fault codes. Remember, all of these vehicles, doesn't matter if you're driving this or a Lexus, if they sit too long and the battery dies, you're gonna have a situation where all these different fault codes start coming up. That's how computers operate. They're all relying on a very specific voltage tolerance, and this is no different. The problem is a lot of Alphas just sit a lot because people generally don't daily drive them like they would a Toyota or a Honda. So they basically sit a lot. The battery goes weak. And of course, so battery related issues, check engine lights, and some of those electrics have been on the radar. But when they dig down deep, they find up often a lot of the electric gremlins are related specifically to weak batteries. And then we have over here a Lexus. Can't go wrong there. This is an RC 300 all-wheel drive F-Sport. Turbo, 240 horsepower, 4-cylinder engine. Very reliable, very fun, very fresh. Not the fastest car on the market, but it's a very cute unit. And I would rank this vehicle here also at probably a 4.5 out of 5. Now over here's another beauty. This unit, absolutely one of my favorites. The only real downfall with this thing is it actually is ultra unpractical. There's no back seats. It has a V8 engine that's a little bit thirsty because it has that 5-liter unit that is able to squeeze out 472 horsepower. It is absolutely entertaining to drive, fun, fresh, sounds amazing, and has all that Lexus reliability dialed right in. This is a vehicle you can literally have your cake and eat it too. We're talking about this unit here, the LC 500 by Lexus. It's absolutely gorgeous. You do get these amazing wheels on there. No problems there. Headlights, electric issues have never been too much of an issue with most Lexus vehicles. As you'll see, this is a hybrid version of the LC 500. This one here is absolutely gorgeous on all fronts. There's your LC 500 mirrors I speak of all the time. Very, very prominent looking unit with great exhaust tips as well. I'd rank this unit at about a 4 out of 5 star, and it's just so easy to own. Again, it's just the lacking of practicality, and the fact that it's rear-wheel drive means that it's not for everybody. Teslas are starting to hit the used car market in vast abundance. And so what sort of issues are you going to expect here? I think Teslas, for the most part, are very simply a beast. And of course, the most reliable of the versions are the 3 like this, or of course the Y, which is both their base level, the SUV and the cars we're looking at right here. The more expensive, more intricate, more technologically advanced cars, for example, like the S as well as the X, are the vehicles you're going to see a lot more problems with. These ones here have marginal durability. Of course, you're not going to have engine issues, you're not going to have coolant issues or transmission problems, but you will have a lot of other electrical bugs, and a lot of the quality control issues hit these ones right where it hurts, right in the knackers. And we all know that quality control has been a problem for Tesla for some time, whether it's, body panels, fitment issues, gap inconsistencies, paint quality issues, of course some of the electrics, and as well as fogging within the lights. Excessive tire wear, a big problem because these cars are a lot heavier than your average vehicle. Of course, more sensors and cameras, and even more automation. Even these doors have heavy automation dialed in. Obviously, we have retractable door handles here, and the interior is chock full of technology, but you just can't see it. Yes, there's even lots of sunroof action on top. That's a prominent area that has been known to break. But overall, get around some of the fitment and the quality and poor construction, the actual reliability is not all that bad on these vehicles. The problem is we're talking about range anxiety. But a vehicle like this Tesla Model 3 parked over here is not all that unreliable. It's just that it has all the weird quirkiness and nuances that you get with electric vehicles that you have to absolutely get to know and love. But the bottom line is, in terms of overall reliability, I would give the Tesla Model 3 pretty much a 3.5. Then we look into a BMW. Here's an older generation M3, beautiful car. This is clearly some of those that people are loving. They're harder to get a hold of. Obviously, newer generation, when they put the big tooth buck grille on front, a lot of people didn't love it. This was the car then you wanted to get your hands on. This has a twin turbo straight 6, 3 liters, and makes anywhere from 414 all the way up to almost 500 ponies in the GTS and various models in between. It is actually one of the most reliable straight 6 engines in BMW's arsenal, next to the now modular B58. This one actually carries the S55, which is actually pretty sturdy. Yeah, crank hub issues were some issues in the engine compartment. Obviously, when we're talking about coming out the crank, too much jarring motion, particularly in the DCT cars. There's a small percentage of cars that have suffered catastrophic engine failures because of some of those problems. And the gearboxes are solid, the DCTs or the manual gearbox, which were available in these cars. Otherwise, they're pretty durable. I mean, electric's never really a big issue in a lot of BMWs. Wheels are always pretty solid. They do have the great decals. The interior actually holds up better than most leather interiors from most other manufacturers. And the infotainment system in BMW's world, called the iDrive system, is more reliable than most other manufacturers. You drive a car like this, you're going to expect higher costs and maintenance fees just because of the simple fact you've got a high-strung M-style engine like that you find in the M4. Yeah, you do get a set of quad exhaust tips like that and beautiful LED rear taillights. And of course, you have a carbon fiber wing here, which is absolutely gorgeous. And so overall, the BMW M4 of this generation is quite sturdy. Now, it's not a Lexus, it's not trying to be, but then it provides a lot of the driving experience. So I'll give the M4 from this generation a 3.5 out of 5 star. Then over here, we have another unit by Infiniti. As you can see, it's an upscale Nissan product. What is this? Well, lighting issues are a problem. ABS issues are a problem, as well as brakes disassembling and as well causing other squeaking and grinding a lot of customers weren't loving. Yeah, they come with some great details like this and wonderful low profile roof rack, and of course LED taillights, as you see right here. This is all-wheel drive QX50 as we're looking at right here. There have been a host of issues though overall, and I would say the reliability isn't great. Some of the electric problems you'll find inside, like the infotainment system glitches and comes and goes, check engine lights, and a host of other random lighting effects that you're just not really looking for. It's not a disco wagon. Then of course transmission issues where it surges and hunts and bucks and kicks, not very reliable in the transmission world. Remember, Nissan and Infiniti have had real struggles with a lot of their transmissions. Engine issues, of course, oil leaks, that's a big one, coolant leaks, but specifically even misfires. Sometimes it's coils and maintenance, sometimes it's bigger than that. But it's not uncommon for a lot of customers to have complaints about some of the engine and transmission and drivability issues with these things. This Infiniti, I wouldn't rank it all that high. Personally, I'd give it about a 2.5 out of 5. Then we have a BMW. This is a later generation. This carries the beautiful little B48 engine. So that's a revised modular engine. Big brother is the B58, the inline 6. Everybody knows that's one of their more durable workhorse engines. This is the baby brother, the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. Actually has a pretty good solid durability and reliability rating. Now it is a basic BMW, as we know, but the electrics, as we would expect, work pretty typically. BMWs are never usually weak in that area. Where they are weak sometimes are coolant leaks and oil leaks, but with the B48 engine and the modular design with the heat encapsulation, the improved bottom end of the engine, as well as improved fueling, means that this B48 engine in this beautiful 330 BMW right here has solid, long-lasting capability dialed right in. And as a result, this BMW, I would actually rate this at almost a 4 out of 5. I'm sort of torn between 3.5 and 4, but remember, the latest BMWs have gone up in the rating scale and are now even considered more reliable than most Hondas. And the next one, we have another BMW. I just want to give you this one in particular. This is probably one of their least reliable engines. We're looking at an E92 or E93 Cabrio. We're looking basically the E90 generation of M3. We know it has that naturally aspirated, glorious V8 engine. Absolutely pounds out, makes great sounds, great performance at 400 ponies. Everybody loves it. Yeah, it's one of the swan songs for BMW, if you will, just like its bigger brother, the M5, the E60 M5, that has that S85 V10. They both come from the same family and have the same host of issues. Throttle actuator issues. At the top, it's basically, there's these gears and they're made of plastic. And unfortunately, those plastic gears, they shear. When they do, you have bad hunting issues, you have drivability problems, and worst of all, you have a check engine light followed up by limp mode. That's a common issue. Rod bearings. Rod bearings are at the bottom of the engine, down underneath there, where you would actually expect, you start by about 60 or 70,000 miles, the rod bearings are usually worn out. You have to do a bottom end rebuild for these because you're usually down to the core metals in the bearings themselves, and those engines are literally on self-destruct. Now the gearbox, you can get a DCT, which actually doesn't help performance all that much. It's supposed to be lightning fast, but the cars equipped with the manual gearbox are actually equally quick. So you could either get a DCT or of course the manual gearbox, both of which are relatively reliable. The big issues here again are the durability of that rod bearing problem in that V8 engine, as well as some of the throttle actuators on here. Otherwise, you would expect a pretty typical ownership experience with this BMW, and I would actually rank this vehicle about a 2 out of 5 simply because of that engine. And with all of that said, be sure to check out right there. That's 2024's most reliable vehicles. You're definitely going to want to check that out as we're rolling into the new season. Hope to see each and every one of you in the next one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.